Lupus LA would like to thank our generous sponsors for their support of the Your Story, Our Fight podcast. Gemini Beauty believes in beauty for a cause, and in their case, the cause is lupus. The team at Gemini is changing the skincare game for good. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Lupus LA podcast, Your Story, Our Fight. I'm your host, Adam Selkowitz. As always, I want to thank our amazing sponsor, Gemini Beauty. This has been an incredible season. We're about to take our summer break. This is our last episode before our summer break, but we'll be back in September with a lot more episodes. But we are ending on a high note. I am very happy to introduce you all today to Dion Langley. Dion is a lupus advocate. He is the founder of drumsforlupus.org. He's a drummer, so makes sense with that organization's title. He's also the co-host of our male support group at Lupus LA, and a terrific guy. And so we're going to talk about jazz. We're going to talk about how Dion is beating his lupus. So Dion, welcome to the show.
How you doing, Adam? Thank you so much. I'm excited, and it's always a pleasure. And I just want to say thank you all. Thank you, Lupus LA, for just the platform and just being able to provide this. This is awesome. This is awesome.
Absolutely. So let's get into your lupus story, because I know you've had lupus for about 13, 14 years now. So tell me pre-lupus. What were you doing before your lupus diagnosis?
Wow, pre-lupus was just a whole new. It was a different Dion. I was active in basketball as a child. Grew up playing sports, basketball, drums, always just on the go. A lot of energy, high energy type person. Could probably eat anything and still just won't gain weight. You know what I'm saying? I was just that active. I just exerted a lot of energy. That was, never smoked, never drank, none of that type person. So I was pretty much healthy. If I went to the hospital, it had to be blood. It had to be some broken bone or something. I just want a hospital type guy. But around, let's say 2008 or 9, I'll say I started, just having these symptoms to where I was having chest pains and just struggling really breathing. And that, when that first happened, like the first time was the scariest moment, because when you get that chest pain in the heart, you automatically think heart attack. So that was just an instant, adrenaline rush, like, oh my God, I got to get to the hospital right now, because I've never felt that.
And how old were you at this time when that happens?
I'm going to say around 27, 28 time frame, somewhere up in there, 27. So, it was just like, all right, cool. It got there. They did the doctor's test, normal routine. Okay, this is what happened. Hey, we'll give you some medicine. Take a couple of days off. I'm right back to being the same Dion. You know what I'm saying? Back running, just being me. So that just went on for continuous a year or two. And, at that time, I was actively drumming, participating in various bands that I was performing with. And so the moment that really, really changed was, I did the same routine, got in the hospital again. And that time it was like, we're not letting you go.
Mm-hmm.
So I think for me.
So the first time they said you didn't have a heart attack, but they didn't know what it was.
Right.
And they said, here's a little pain medicine or something.
Medicine, took pain medicine. Yeah, but that went on for years, because even when it happened again and again and again, I really wasn't worried, because I was like, okay, just give me the pain medicine. Boom. So mentally, I was just like, okay, let's just go get this pain medicine. Y'all release me so I can get back to drumming. Because at that time I was touring. I was actually touring. And
I'm assuming you had a doctor say, well, you're always doing this and causing your chest. I'm assuming that was sort of in your head. You went, okay, it's just soreness or something like that.
Yeah, soreness, just overexerting yourself. They made sure that I was eating right and stuff like that. So I changed my eating habits, just to make sure that I was okay. But it was nothing to the point to where I had to be hospitalized and be, laying up in the bed for 6 or 7 months. You understand? So
So when you were hospitalized, was that just a more aggressive doctor who said, you know what, let's get to the bottom of this?
Yeah, I believe so, because I feel like the time when they did finally hospitalize me, it was just a whole different team that came in. Like, it's different when one doctor come in there and tell you something, but then you got like 3 or 4 doctors that walk in and you sitting in that ER or something. It's something ain't right. So it was just a different look. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then, so tell me, how long was that? So you get hospitalized, and where does it start to go? Hey, maybe this is an autoimmune issue.
Well, I never thought it was an autoimmune issue. Once I got hospitalized, they kept running all these tests, and they kept saying, we'll run this test in the morning. They was putting me through all these machines. I got various doctors coming in, and I'm just sitting here like, at that point, like, I really started getting worried, like after a couple of days, because I'm like, yo, something ain't right. But then I found myself not having the same appetite. Um, I lost weight, and then it was to the point to where I couldn't lay flat, so I had to lay at like an angle just for me to be comfortable. You know, and it was just weird stuff that started happening. And then my energy was just to a point to where it's like, it'll take so much for me to do the small things, like bend down and just tie my shoe. So when I saw these signs and saw these things going in that direction, that's when I started really worrying. And then when you keep running all these tests and different doctors coming in and they can't figure it out, now that becomes another issue, because now mentally I'm all off. Like, I'm just so confused.
Mm-hmm. And what was the next step? So who made the breakthrough?
I believe it was a doctor in Portsmouth, Virginia, um, where he wanted to take a lymphnoid, and they cut me right underneath my left arm here, and he wanted to do a biopsy. So that was the turning point, and I think that was the scariest point for me too, because now you have to cut on me. And like I said
Mm-hmm.
again, I've never been the type of person that had to go through all that. So now they're saying they got to put me to sleep, cut on me, and I'm like, oh wow. So I knew at that point, I knew it was something serious, because you're not just gonna cut on anybody for no reason. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just feel like
Mm-hmm.
it got to be something that they really got to get to the bottom to. So they took that lymph node out, and then that's when they said, hey, we think we know what's going on. So again, after that, I still had to wait like a couple of days before I got an answer.
Mm-hmm. And you were in the hospital this whole time.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, that's probably the
And
longest I was in the
and
hospital.
what's your support system like at that point?
Uh, at that point, when it came to my close relatives, uh, my kids, I have this thing called an inner circle. So my inner
Mm-hmm.
circle, real supportive. My kids, my uncle, um, that's my inner circle. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and that they were the most supportive. Like, my daughter is when I tell you, I think that was the hardest point for her, because she never seen daddy down like that. And all I can remember before going into that surgery was that I saw the look on her face when she just cried, and my uncle had to hold her. And that's the
How old was
last.
she then?
She was probably about, I'm gonna say about 17 or 18, somewhere in that time
Mm-hmm.
frame. Yeah, about 17 or 18. And all I can remember was just seeing the look on her face as she cried before I passed out. Like, that's
Mm-hmm.
and for me as a father, like, that was scary. That
Yeah.
like that was scary, because I just didn't know. I knew something was bad, but I was like, is this can't be the last time like this? You know what I'm saying? So at
Right.
that point, that was a very scary moment for me, and I know for her and my kids. But my uncle was there, and I really appreciate him. And that support circle right there for me, that's what gets me through. Yes, sir.
So you get the lupus diagnosis. They put you on some medicine, I assume, let you out of the hospital. Then what happens to you? Like, then where does the realization that after this intensity of the hospital visit, okay, now we're back to life here, but I've got this lupus diagnosis.
Right. That was after that diagnosis. that was the worst. I'm gonna say that my next 2 to 3 years was probably the worst ever. Like I hit a downfall. Okay, and I'm not even gonna say that I was depressed, but I felt like I was going in that direction because
Mm-hmm.
my life changed so quickly, and it felt like I didn't have control over it. And I was diagnosed with something that I didn't understand, I didn't know about. So immediately the fear comes. And as a man and as a human being, you fear what you don't understand. So to me, that moment after I got diagnosed and just those when I got released from the hospital, the next 2 or 3 years was probably worse because I never saw myself mentally in the space that I was in. Like mentally I was done. I secluded myself from the world. I didn't tell people I had lupus. That's the crazy
Hmm.
thing. I kept playing it off. The only people that knew was my uncle, my kids, my there goes that inner circle again. But outside of
Yep.
that inner circle, nobody never knew I had lupus, and I would make up the craziest excuses
And why do you think you did that?
because nobody knew about it. And when
But
I got that,
why did you want to keep it from people?
because I felt like this when I first got diagnosed with lupus. At that time, that's when Google really started people started really using Google. So I went on Google and I looked it up, and all I saw was women.
Mm-hmm.
It was like every advertisement, every poster, every billboard, anything that had lupus connected, it was only women. So I'm like, either I got diagnosed with something, either I got a misdiagnosis or something wrong with me. Like it was like that. That really tore me for a loop.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So you come to this place to where it's like I have a disease that I only see women, or that I only see advertisements or publicity of just women. So how could I get diagnosed with a women's disease? So
Mm-hmm.
as a man, you feel like your manhood is just like you question yourself in a whole bunch of areas because it's just like, wow.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, it was so hard for me to take in that I had lupus, that I had lupus. Now, the crazy thing about it, I started doing my research and I started getting nosy because this is something that I had to deal with. And
Mm-hmm.
they was like, well, only 10% of men have it. And I'm like, wow. So I got y'all picked me out of all these people. You know what I'm saying? So
Mm-hmm.
I was upset, I was frustrated, and I was asking myself, why me? So I went through
Yep.
the whole why me stage. I was like, out of all these people, why me? Like, I don't drink, I don't smoke. It's like why. And so again, that why me stage was heavy on my heart for like 3 years.
Yep. I've been there. I've been there. And for me too, the disproportionate amount of people who are minority African American who have
Yeah,
lupus. So
yes,
I'm in an even smaller
right,
category than
right.
and I was like, it was like, I
Yeah,
don't get it. You know what I mean? Like
that's it.
it's hard to be in that 10%, but
Definitely,
I
that's the
think what we're
hardest thing.
finding is I'm not totally convinced that 10% number isn't bigger.
It is
Just based on
right,
my experience and
right,
meeting men with lupus.
right.
Um, but I can certainly identify with that
Yeah,
feeling of,
yes,
how did
sir.
I end up in this
Yeah, how
category?
did I? Yes, like you go in and type in lupus on any app, whatever. It's women. Like it's women. It's a straight women's thing. And even when I was trying to get out of my shell, and I would ask my close friends or any conversation that I would have about lupus, it's it's just a women's thing. It's not a man's thing. So at that point, I ain't even saying I got it. Even if I'm trying to dig up information or try to see what somebody is saying, if they don't say anything about man, like I'm not even saying anything. So I'm hope you only understand. Like after that point, I went through like this 3 year phase where I want myself. I was hiding. I was in this shell because I was so afraid to let people know that I had lupus because it just wasn't something that was popular for a man, especially back in 2010 when I got diagnosed. It just wasn't
And
exposed.
so after that 3 year, what changed at the end of that 3 years that made you say, you know what, I got to tell people what I have, and I have to advocate.
It was. it was funny. I in that time period, I was real grateful for my love circle. Okay, and I really gotta say this because my daughter, I talk to her all the time, and I always tell her that I have to apologize to her because I felt like I took her childhood away because she had to be the woman of the house and do things that wasn't meant for her to do at that point. Because I had a younger
Mm-hmm.
son then, and he was still in Pampers, you know, and so it was
Mm-hmm.
like when he was with me, I couldn't take care of him. She had to do the stuff, the bath, the bathing, the cooking, So it was like she had to be that mature. She had to be the adult when it won't her time. So I felt real bad, but I'm so grateful for her. Um, so I was able to get through it. And let me tell you something. I really had to come into a place to where I was comfortable with myself and trying to understand. The more and more I tried to understand what lupus was, and I really did a lot of prayer, man. Like it took me to be in a space by myself, and I think God sometimes put you in positions to where you have to depend on Him. And I was at that stage to where I had to depend on Him. And when I understood that, I took a mentally different approach about lupus. And I always tell people this: in order for me to start healing from lupus or trying to get better with my lupus, I had to accept it. So the first thing that I had to do was accept the fact that I had lupus. The first 2 or 3 years, I never accepted it. So when I finally accepted it, guess what? Now I'm mentally on the pathway to where I can start getting better and start progressing. But I had to accept it. That was the first step. So I did that. And once I got through that stage and I found myself gradually getting back to Dion, the mentally stable Dion where I used to be, the strong minded Dion, um, I said, man, I had to get back drumming. I said, it's drums is my safe place. That's the place to where when I get behind the drum set, I let everything go. I let the weight of the world go. Whatever's going on with me, I let it go. I'm in this bubble. So I started, getting back drumming, getting my strength back up, trying to do the little things. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and because I knew that sitting out in my profession, sitting out for a long period of time, especially drumming, it's hard to get back on the scene once you take a break because there's drummers all over the
Mm-hmm.
place and everybody fighting for a position. Um, but I was blessed to get an opportunity to go on a jazz tour, and
Mm-hmm.
I started the jazz tour. But before I started the jazz tour, I told myself, I said, listen, I have to have something that's going to motivate me, to keep me
Mm-hmm.
motivated, to be able to get through everything that I'm dealing with, because people still don't know I have lupus. So before I started touring, I said, man, I gotta have something that's gonna help Dion, because at this point I'm just thinking about Dion.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that's when the hashtag started, popping out a little bit more. So I said I'm just gonna, create a shirt and just put hashtag beat lupus on it. And I'll just put a hashtag beat lupus. And every time I play drums, I'll wear it. But when I wear it, it's to help me, it's to motivate me, to keep me that say, hey, I gotta
Yeah.
get through this. So I started back touring, and every time I played drums, no matter what city I went to, I just put on a hashtag beat lupus shirt. And yeah, I had different colors. But the turning point, this is what made me start advocating. The turning point was we did a show in Ohio one night, and oh man, the house was packed, and we was in the stadium, and they got the two big screens, the monitors.
Right.
So
Right.
it was time for the drum solo. So when it's time for the drum solo, they zoom in. So when they
Right.
zoomed in, of course, I'm doing my drum solo, but I got a hashtag beat lupus shirt on. Um, and so after the show, we do the show, everything went great. So I'm in the dressing room changing, and someone knocks on the door. He said, "Hey man, Dion, somebody out here, they want to see you. They want to meet you." And I say, "Man, I don't know nobody in Ohio." I say, "Wow, like okay." I don't think I owe nobody no money or nothing, so like, that's what I'm like, who in the world, I'm way in Ohio. But again,
Right.
with me being in the profession I'm in, I have to be able to be available to my audience for pictures, autographs,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. So I say, okay, I'll be out there. And when I walk out there, it's this family standing there, and it's a mother, father, and a son. And the mother's just in tears. Like she's just in like straight tears, bawling. And the husband comes and he said, listen, I just want to shake your hand. He said, I know you don't know us. He said, but we noticed, the shirt that you had on. And I say, yes, sir. I say, thank you. And come to find out, their son he came to the show that night. They said he was depressed. He was in depressed mode. This was his first time out the house in like 3 months. Okay. Come to find out, to make a long story short, he was a high school football player. He was on his way to college, had a full ride scholarship to play college football. He took his physical the week before. He left to go to school, took his physical, found out he was diagnosed with lupus, and they took his scholarship. So he couldn't play football. Right. So that changed everything. You know what I'm saying, for him.
Yeah.
And that,
and you realized you got this power, right?
Right.
It connects.
Like that story was like when they told me the story, and like if y'all could have just seen the passion and just the emotion in his mom, and he was like, man, I didn't know you can play drums and have lupus. But the crazy thing about it is, even before I said that, his father was like, does someone in your family have lupus? And I say, no, sir. I say,
That's me, right?
As soon as I said me, he was like, and
I get that all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
I get that all the time. So when I said I have lupus, he was like, wow. And then that made his mom even more like she just, oh my goodness. If y'all had to be there to see it. But it's like, so he started asking questions. He said, man, I didn't know that you can play drums and have lupus. And I said, yeah, man. I say, listen, you can do anything you want with lupus. I say, it's not that I can't play drums no more. I just have to limit what I do. I say, I probably can't play as long. I'm probably not as powerful. I'm probably not as fast or do all the things that I could do. I say, but I can still do it. And I told him, I say, by that time I had lupus probably for about 4 or 5 years now. So I was understanding my body, the do's and don'ts. So at that point I knew my limits. And I told him, I say, you have to know your limits. I say, it's not that you can't do, there's limitations on what you can do. And just, just having that conversation with them that night. And I got a chance, to take a picture with them. I signed their autograph, and I've been in touch with them. So I just encouraged them. And that night, man, when we left Ohio, I knew right then that it was a bigger purpose for me. And I told myself, I say, if I'm able to travel the world, travel playing drums, I say, why not spread a positive message while doing so? And that's how I started advocating. And
perfect. Let me do this. I want to take a quick break.
Yes, sir.
And then we're going to come back and talk about all the advocacy that you do and the work you do with Lupus LA and all that. So we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with Dion Langley.
Please visit our online store at lupusla.org. By purchasing Lupus LA products, you are directly supporting lupus patients and their families. For more information, visit lupusla.org.
We are back on the Lupus LA podcast, Your Story, Our Fight. And we're talking to Dion Langley. We're talking about drumming and advocacy. And that was a super powerful story you just told about the first time you realized the impact you could make. And so tell me, Dion, what after this experience, how did you formalize your advocacy? What did you do?
I got back to Virginia, and I got home, and my brain just started going all over the place. And I said, wow, man. I said, I got to come up with a name that really fits me. Once I got back from Ohio, I came home and I just started just trying to put ideas together. And, I wanted to create something that really fit and fit my profile and fit who I was. So I came up with hashtag Beat Lupus. And that's because I'm a drummer with lupus. So my goal is to beat drums and my goal is to beat lupus. So I said, this name is perfect. A drummer with lupus. So hashtag Beat Lupus. That's how I came up with it. And since then I've been so creative about just trying to put the word out and just use, my whole drumming style to advocate for lupus. And
tell me how you met Emmett, or your
oh
Lupus
man,
LA co-support
yeah,
group leader.
me and Emmett, man, we met on some internet, and we was just at that point. Okay, at that point, I'm on the East Coast. And he's on the West Coast. So I'm out here advocating, and it's like, man, I'm advocating, but nobody's hearing me, nobody's listening. Am I the only guy that have lupus? Is this something I'm doing by myself? And one day, I came across a guy, Emmett Henderson, and he said he was a lupus warrior. I said, okay, cool. So then I clicked on his page, and I'm like, man, he doing the same. Okay, wow. So I think we started following each other on Facebook, and before you know it, man, one day I don't know how we started talking, but either he came in my inbox and I came in his inbox, and we just had a conversation. And before you know it, it was like, wow, man, I thought I was the only one advocating. And he said the same thing. He said, man, yeah, the same thing. And from that moment, ever since then, it's been, I tell people all the time, he started out as my friend, but he's my brother. So we went from friends to a brotherhood that's unbreakable, man. And to have someone, it made me feel good because to have someone join in on the battle that I was battling. And when you feel alone, that gave me more energy to advocate now that I got somebody with me that's pushing the same issue. So that was a blessing.
And tell me about the support group. Tell me why a male support group is so important.
Well, I believe men, we carry so much weight. We hold so much stuff in. And I always encourage people, to join this support group because we have some real healthy conversations and we have some tough topics. And as sometimes as men, we got to get that weight off. And just like you said earlier, Adam, it's so many more men that have lupus. They're just not saying anything. So we created a safe space for men to come and vent. And I always tell people, just because me and Emmett probably proctored this whole event, but I get more out of it than probably anybody. Like it's like I need it. You understand? And you'd be surprised just the stories and the conversations because it's people from all around. We got Michigan, South Carolina, North Carolina, we got Louisiana, we got people in Texas, we got people all over the globe, and they have different stories. So we're able to connect. We've got a couple people from Canada too. They're able to connect, but we also able to gain knowledge as well because you actually learn something from someone and so when you go to your doctor, now you can have this recommendation and you can take a different course of action. And, like I say, again, it's just so much knowledge. But again, us men need that safe space to just have to have these conversations. And I think that's where we lack at when it comes to advocating.
So tell me a little bit about what's the future hold? What are you working on next? Where I know you're all over the country drumming, which is great.
I'm so excited because I have my own jazz band now, so I'm putting so much energy into that. Prayerfully that we will be able to do a Beat Lupus music tour. So that's my number one goal. And I want to do this because a lot of times when people look at lupus and they look at the lupus events, I just want to bring a different flair to it. I want to make lupus fun. I feel like lupus, needs a different identity. It needs something to make people want to come out. So I'm praying that we have this Beat Lupus music tour, and it's just going to be a tour of me and my band going to different cities and locations, letting you have a great night of listening to great music, but we're also going to have education too as well. So we'll have a portion where we talk about lupus. We have these conversations, and and I'll definitely invite doctors and keynote speakers in as well, along the way. But I want you to just come out and have a night of fun and just enjoy great music. And so I just, like I say, I advocate just a different way. I may not be able to get up there and talk for hours, hours and hours, but drums is my passion, and that's how I advocate, and that's how I represent lupus. I feel like the lupus community needs someone doing something out here positive, so that people can see just because we have lupus or we have an autoimmune disease that we can still achieve our goals in life as well.
Amazing. No, listen, we are in full support of that. We'll be happy to help in any way we can. And I want to thank you for your advocacy, for your work with Lupus LA. Yes, and the beat goes on, right? I mean, I think that's the message I'm hearing.
That's it. Always tell people I'm drumming to a different beat, and that's the beat lupus. That's my quote.
Excellent.
Yes, sir.
Dion, thank you so much. And thank you to our audience. I want everybody to have a great summer, and we'll be back in September with a lot more lupus patient stories. So thank you again, Dion, and looking forward to seeing you soon.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
On behalf of the entire team at Lupus LA, we thank you for joining the Your Story, Our Fight podcast. Please tune in, spread the word, and come back for more inspiring lupus stories. I'm your host, Adam Selkowitz, wishing you good health, and to always remember, your story is our fight.